So my parents don't know that I do psychedelics, or at least I don't think they know. But somehow if my parents are watching this right now and they found about this whole channel dedicated to psychedelics, then hello parents, I've done psychedelics in front of you more than once. And in this video I just wanted to share some poignant times that I've had tripping on shrooms or LSD around my parents and family who were sober, I think, and when they had no idea that I was tripping. So one time I was on 100 micrograms of LSD and I was with my family in the Philippines, and I used to go there like almost every year pre-COVID. And also I mentioned this in another video, but it's lightning. My uncle who lived in the Philippines died in 2015, and he was like a third parent to me, so his death had a huge impact on me. And this trip in the Philippines was like one of the first times that I've tripped in the Philippines, and of course like he was on my mind during that. So while I was tripping, me and my family decided to eat at this fast food place that my uncle really liked back in the day. And so I was just sitting there at the table and I was just like staring out the door, and I could see this mall that I also had a lot of memories in with my uncle. And then I just started crying, and it was really hard to stop, and I was just wishing that he was there with us. This was like 2 years after his death, so it was kind of random, but my family figured out why I was crying, and then they started crying, and then my mother took a picture of me. Unbeknownst to her, I was tripping on acid, trying to smile but crying. And then the rest of that trip, the weather was really gloomy and cloudy that day, and I remember just wishing that the sun was out because the sun makes things look so pretty. But then I realized that it was similar to how I felt about my uncle, and how there's a lot of moments where I just wish my uncle was there with us, because it would make that moment so much better. So yeah, at that time, I don't think my family could tell I was on drugs, except for me being a bit more emotional than usual. Another time I tripped with my parents was also in the summer of 2017, and summer of 2017 was a big transitory period of my life because I just graduated college and I was about to move across the country from California to New York, and so I was just like tripping a lot, cherishing my last moments of childhood, I guess, where, you know, you just spend extended periods of time doing absolutely boring, mundane shit with your parents and family. So this was one of those times, and I guess that this happened at a fast food place called El Pollo Loco, which is like this Mexican fast food chain in the West Coast, or if you want to call it fast casual maybe. And I know I have a lot of memories at fast food places, but I think that's like what my parents kind of raised me on, and so it has some sentimental value to me. Anyway, so my parents love going to El Pollo Loco. We would go there like at least once a week, and one thing we would do is El Pollo Loco has this like free salsa bar, and you can pick up as much salsa as you want and fill it up in the like tiny plastic salsa container things. So I was tripping on acid again, and I wanted to eat before the trip really set in, and so me and my dad drove to the El Pollo Loco, the neighborhood El Pollo Loco, which is a path that we've taken many times before, but on this car ride I was just really appreciating my neighborhood, and the trees were like dancing and I was coming up. Then when we got to El Pollo Loco, I was really tripping, and the El Pollo Loco was more crowded than usual too, but I composed myself and I went over to the salsa bar and I started filling up salsa containers as calmly as I could. And then when my dad finished ordering his food, he came over to me and helped me fill up more salsa containers, and we had kind of like an assembly line going on, and we didn't talk throughout the whole thing. And that's kind of like my relationship with my dad, where we don't really talk that much, but we don't need to. I just really appreciated going through the motions, filling up these salsa containers at El Pollo Loco with my dad, and like, who knew how many more times I would be able to do this the rest of my life. So I was just hyper aware of that. Yeah, I tried really hard not to cry at the salsa bar. By the time that we got back home, I was really not hungry at this point, but I chose to stay and sit and eat with my dad, which I didn't normally do. Like, my family, we kind of just eat wherever we feel like, but this time I chose to stay with my dad, you know, still not talking, but in the same vicinity. My dad's one of those people who chews very loudly when they eat, and that normally drives me crazy, but in that moment I didn't really mind. And I was just thinking about, you know, when we're children and eating is more like a chore and you just want to get through it as fast as possible and go back to playing games or going on the computer, watching TV, or hang out with your friends. But when you grow older, you start to cherish, or at least I started to cherish more, just spending time eating with my family. And I was thinking, what is so important eating, and like the ritual of eating, and then I was thinking, well, food gives us sustenance, and similarly, I guess the people that we surround ourselves with also give us sustenance in that way, and who we choose to eat with is like those people that we really spend a lot of time with, and they make a huge impact on our lives. Then another time toward the end of summer 2017, I was on shrooms, and my parents decided to watch old VHS home video tapes that they had digitalized. And so you can imagine tripping and watching these old home videos where you were like a child and your parents were a lot younger than they are now, and how freaking trippy that can be. I was like, damn, that is the end of this chapter, I guess, and I'm going to be spending a lot less time with them now. And I really appreciated that they took the time to document those moments. And I know, like, in the moment it's so hard to take a photo or a video, but as long as it's not like too invasive toward the moment, I think it's a great way to capture these moments, and I really appreciate that they did that. It's just so nice to look back on. And of course I tried again not to cry, but I cried, but it was not off-brand for me, so I don't think my parents suspected anything then. So this is the last trip that I will share, but this happened in fall of 2019, actually, in the Philippines with my family at a beach lot that my parents owned, and I was on 100 micrograms of acid. And once again, we were eating fast food. This fast food called Chowking. And now, back in the day, I really, really liked Chowking, but that day, it just tasted awful to me, or bland, like cardboard, and like fake. And I didn't know if it was the acid, or like maybe that was just a bad day for Chowking. Fast food in the Philippines is kind of considered a special occasion. Really, the more rich people there eat it, because there's way cheaper food to eat than that. And we had other relatives there who were kind of treating it like a treat, like a special delicacy in a way, and I felt kind of bad that I thought it was crap and I didn't really want to eat it. But then I wondered, maybe my food tastes have just changed and evolved over the years, because since I went to college and then moved to New York, I have been exposed to a lot more quality food, and a lot more different types of cuisines, and I've had like very fancy dining as well experiences versus kind of the fast food that I was raised up on. And so maybe I just had a higher standard for food quality now. But the reason I was able to study hard to get to college, to then get a job that could pay me enough that I could afford to live in New York, was because of all the hard work and sacrifices that my parents made for me, and all the ways that my parents ensured that I had a better life than they did. And my changing and evolving taste in food was somewhat a reflection of that. So yeah, it was just like the general theme of like parents and what they do for their children that just kept coming up. Later that trip, my mother and aunt and I were at a flower shop, and I was just kind of like admiring the flowers there. I never really cared for flowers before, but you know, they look nice on acid. But my mother loves flowers. My mother was fussing over which flowers to buy, like this one was too big or this one was too small. And as I watched my mother fret over these flowers, I started tearing up because I was just so relieved that my mother could spend out like the rest of her old age over these wholesome activities, like over what flowers to buy, and that she could derive such simple pleasure from it. Like, I was thankful that this was the kind of stuff she was worrying about in life now, because my mother grew up with a lot of hardship, and I was just happy that she was happy and okay. And then I had the distinct feeling that I was actually a time traveler, traveling from the hopefully very, very, very far distant future, but a future where my mother was now dead, and that I traveled to this time of the simple moment of watching my mother buy flowers, and I just looked at her in awe and appreciation, and I missed her even though she was just right in front of me. Like, just imagine that you had these time traveling capabilities, and yet you choose to time travel to the most mundane moments just because you missed those moments so much. You know, I've gone flower shopping with my mother hundreds of times before. I've often opted out of going there and just waiting in the car, staying at home. And yet, future me decided to travel back to this time. And then I put my sunglasses on so she wouldn't see me cry. And that's really one of the greatest things that psychedelics have taught me, is to appreciate the people in my life while they are still in my life. All those boring moments you spent together. Like, sure, you have your extraordinary memories here and there, but that boring shit, that's what comprises most of life. Of course, you don't always want to live in monotony, but those times in between excitement and change are the times that you take the most for granted, because you don't expect them to change. You're just settled into the comfort of the day-to-day, but inevitably they will. And tripping with my parents and family around, these people who I've known my whole life, longer than anyone else, that's when I really fully realized this. And now I try to treasure each moment I have with them, no matter how dull, even when I'm not tripping. Alright, I hope you guys like that assortment of trip reports, and with the themes of my parents and fast food. Surprisingly, I didn't expect. Alright, see you next time. Bye.